Hello and welcome back to Perspectives, bringing you our daily dose of news and views we hope are relevant to you. Today, another sign of the Indian state oppressing Sikhs in their own country as we report on the airport Kirpan ban. The fake video we reported on last week is wreaking untold damage across social media. We take a look at some of the shocking impact it's having. The deadline looms for thousands of Indian students and foreign workers in Canada, and New Zealand Sikhs celebrate the Khalistan Referendum over the weekend. All this and more on today's show. Well, joining me as always for Perspectives is our very own correspondent in Canada, James Cousineau. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Angus, and good morning to our amazing viewers out there. Thanks for joining us once again.
Indeed, and James and I together will be bringing you our perspectives on the daily news affecting the Sikh community across the world. And of course, we'll take a look at loads of your great comments which you've been filling up below the videos at the end of the show. So thanks very much, as always, for those. Now, just a quick note. Yes, some of you have noticed that this channel has been demonetized. YouTube has come down on us. We don't know why, other than allegedly we've broken community guidelines. I believe this is maybe linked to what's going on in India and their massive clampdown. YouTube, of course, is owned by Google, based in Silicon Valley, with a lot of Indian diaspora employees. So we wonder if it is linked to that. So we'll have more details, hopefully, over the next few days as we try and appeal this and we try and find out just what exactly it is that we've been doing wrong, other than highlighting the truth. We shall let you know. But of course, in our audience, if you've got any suggestions for us, or the platforms that you prefer to see us on, or even sponsor us as a channel, let us know. Do let us know in the comments below, or email us directly at message@satellitestv.com. But as I say, we'll have more details over the coming days on that. But in the meantime, James, let's get this show on the road. What are you going to start us off with this morning?
Auckland, New Zealand is now in the books. The Khalistan referendum took place today. A great turnout, and the weather didn't look too bad either. So with that, just the excitement roaring through, and we'll take a quick video here, or take a look at a quick video here to see what was going on.
एक ਵੱਖਰਾ एंगल आ ऑटवा स्क्वायर जिथे अज खालिस्तान ਦੀਆਂ ਵੋਟਾਂ ਪੈ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਉਸ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਗਲੀ ਆ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਲਾਈਨਾਂ ਲੱਗੀਆਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਸੜਕਾਂ ਤੇ ਲਾਈਨਾਂ ਲੱਗੀਆਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਸੋ ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਲਾਈਨ ਆ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ 4:30 ਦਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਆ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਆਕਲੈਂਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੋ ਇਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗਲੀ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਚੋਂ ਲੰਘ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਸਾਰਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਟਵਾ ਸਕੁਅਰ ਆ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਵੋਟਰਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਭਰਿਆ ਪਿਆ ਦੋਨੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਤੋਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਲੱਭ ਰਹੇ ਲਾਈਨਾਂ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਥੱਕੇ ਪਏ ਆ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਲਾਈਨਾਂ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਸੋ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਐਲਏ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਇਹ ਗਲੀ 'ਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਖੜੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦਿਖਾਣਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਅੱਗੇ ਸੋ ਇਟਸ ਅ ਹਿਊਜ ਸਕਸੈਸ ਆਕਲੈਂਡ ਇਜ਼ ਅ ਹਿਊਜ ਸਕਸੈਸ ਫॉर ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ ਰੈਫਰੈਂਡਮ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਲਾਈਨਾਂ ਅੱਜ 4:30 ਦਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਆ ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਵੋਟਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਉਹ ਇਕੱਠੀਆਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰੀਆਂ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਪ੍ਰਬੰਧਕਾਂ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖੋ ਆਲਾ ਦੋਲਾ ਚੈੱਕ ਕਰੋ ਲਾਈਨਾਂ ਲੱਗੀਆਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ
So as you can see there, Angus, there was a lot of excitement there. The lineup that went on for quite a while. People were excited to finally get to the polling stations and cast their vote. Over 37,500 people are the estimated numbers, but should bring that well over 500,000 worldwide. People have voted. People have made their voices heard, and they are showing Narendra Modi that this is more than what he refers to as just a fringe movement. At that point, of course, there is the next referendum coming up in March 2025 in Los Angeles, California. So if you are in the U.S., not to fear, the next Khalistan referendum vote will be taking place in Los Angeles. So stay tuned and watch our show to keep up to date on that as it draws closer. And of course, as more numbers and more information come in from the referendum in New Zealand, we'll keep you updated on that as well. And it should be noted that with the large numbers of people that lined up for just blocks and blocks to get their voices heard. It was a very peaceful event. There were a few people there just stirring up the crowd, trying to cause issues, saying that the Khalistan flag is not welcome in New Zealand, and just kind of egging on the crowd, who just ignored the individual. beautiful response by just ignoring him and just pretending he didn't exist. The police kind of asked him gently to move along and, take his megaphone and put it somewhere where it's not so annoying for the rest of us. So that was in New Zealand today, Angus.
Fantastic. Well done to all the Sikh community in New Zealand. Great turnout. It says in that video 37,500 people turned out. We haven't had that verified yet. But, I mean, what a fantastic turnout. Clearly, the streets lined with Khalistan flags, Khalistan supporters, and just Sikhs from the community. Whether they voted yes or no, it doesn't matter. The fact that they were out there in force, just proving that democracy is unfolding. Democracy works. It's fantastic to see. As you rightly said, James, how interesting that the right wing were clearly out there trying to disrupt the normal flow of democracy. Now, we don't know anything about this guy. He may be just some right-wing nut job from New Zealand, or he might be a paid Hindutva agent. Who knows? It is very likely that Hindutva have certainly done their best to try and stir up the right wing in New Zealand. It's not very hard to do, to stir up the right wing, to turn on events like this. Hindutva are very practiced at it, and it's what they're doing regularly across North America. So I have to say, like you, James, well done to the community for turning out, remaining peaceful, remaining happy, enthusiastic, all very positive. Cameras were there. Cameras marked the event. One believes that the mainstream media in New Zealand will also have marked it. Certainly local news were there marking it. And again, it's all very, very good publicity. And as we often say, if you're out there in the streets with the Khalistan flag, people are going to ask questions what it is about. What is all this Khalistan issue? And it gives the opportunity to educate more and more people about it, more and more people who are not related to it or not related to the Sikh community. And it's all about education, and it's informing people what it is about. And if it sounds like a reasonable cause, people will support it. And all it's doing is increasing the support for the Khalistan movement. And likewise, as we often say on this channel, if you remain enthusiastic, happy, cheerful, smiley, always peaceful as you campaign at these events, it sends out a very, very powerful, positive message. People associate Khalistan with that very positive ethos and philosophy and feelings of goodness. And that's what it's all about. So well done to the people who turned out in New Zealand. As one of the stories that I will come on to, you were noticed by the general public and questions were asked. And it's very important that the right impression is given, because it can very easily go the wrong way, as I will report in one of my stories. So, James, I think it's fantastic to see. And again, a huge well done to the people of New Zealand, the Sikh community of New Zealand. Again, massive turnout. And once again, it just proves how powerful, even if it's unofficial, how powerful this referendum is proving, because the turnout is absolutely enormous. It is sending such a powerful message, not just to Narendra Modi in India, but actually to the United Nations. The United Nations are going to take note of these figures, of these numbers, these statistics, saying, look how many people turned out from all these global communities in the diaspora. And they're going to say, okay, this is no small fringe movement, as Modi's India tried to claim. This is clearly a very powerful, very large global movement, and they will have no choice but to take it very seriously. It gives a huge amount of ammunition to the alignment of Sikh organisations and the Sikh Federation who are approaching the United Nations. It gives them a powerful argument to say, look how many people are supporting this globally in the Punjab, but also globally across the diaspora. This is huge ammunition. So well done to everybody. Keep supporting it. If you're in LA for the next one, get out there and get your vote in. Turn out with your Khalistan flag. Also very encouraging to see, James, loads of families out there. Again, it's not just men terrorists, fringe movement, these extremists turning out, as India likes to portray. It's families, it's children, it's ladies. The whole families are turning out for these things. It's a family event, and again, it sets out a very, very powerful image to the world's press. This is what it's all about. It's about families, it's about democracy, it's about positive messages, James.
Absolutely, Angus, and thanks to Jagdeep Singh from New York, who traveled all the way out to New Zealand and shared that video with us. And if you want to see more, he's got a great collection of videos on his Facebook page. Just check Jagdeep Singh on Facebook, or just search Khalistan Referendum New Zealand on Facebook, and you'll find a bunch of his videos there. He shared a lot of them. So again, thank you to him for that. We appreciate the shares. And let's move on to another country, and that is here at home in Canada for me. The new rules are coming in soon for immigration. The numbers, of course, as we reported on previously, are being reduced. Now, with the reductions, of course, we are seeing some major things happening, and this is as a direct result. Of course, let's take a look at the numbers here for the rollbacks. In 2025, it's looking that they are bringing the numbers down to approximately 395,000. In 2026, 380,000. And in 2027, they are expecting it to drop to 365,000 in comparison to this year, where they are at about 485,000. And they've blamed that on a lot to do with the rapid recovery after the pandemic shutdown, and the fact that employers needed people to work right away. And then you combine that with the foreign student population, and that gives you some of those numbers. Excuse me. Now, the temporary residents will drop about 30,000 per year on average, and that includes both the foreign students and the foreign workers. Now, refugee and asylum seekers are up by thousands. Right now, the numbers are, the estimates are in from January to September of 2024. And in that area, they're looking at approximately a 10,000 count of applications that have been added to the pile, which brings them up into the hundreds of thousands of applications that they already had. So it's taking the Canadian government time to get through them all, but they are vetting everyone well. With that said, there is Saeed Hussain, who's the spokesperson for the Migrants' Rights Network Secretariat, and he said that we are witnessing one of the most egregious rollbacks of migrant rights in Canadian history. He also went on to say cutting permanent resident numbers is a direct assault on on migrants who will be forced to remain temporary or become undocumented, pushed further into exploitive jobs. Now, unfortunately, the way that Canada has handled the immigration previously, especially over the last 4 years, has not worked out well. Between the employers that are taking advantage of it, between the private colleges and private and public colleges and universities that are taking advantage of the programs as well, it was time for Canada to say we've got to slow it down because we can't sustain these numbers. And it's not fair to people coming to Canada either when the resources are not available to help them, whether that's housing, whether that's rapid access to medical services, and so forth. So it's really an important issue that they had to deal with, and although it's not liked, it is essential that it is, scaling back to handle the immigration in a responsible and proper manner. And with that said, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau actually came out and had a little talk to explain it. And here is what Prime Minister Trudeau had to say about that.
Immigration. Let's talk about it. In the last 2 years, our population has grown really fast, like baby boom fast. And increasingly, bad actors like fake colleges and big chain corporations have been exploiting our immigration system for their own interests. So we're doing something major. We're reducing the numbers of immigrants that will come to Canada for the next 3 years. Today, I'm going to let you in on what happened, where we made some mistakes, and why we're taking this big turn. There are two kinds of immigration in Canada. The one you probably think of most is permanent immigration, like when families come to Canada to settle, call it home. Every year, the government determines the right number of permanent residents that we want to admit. That's how it's been done for decades. But a plan that only talks about permanent immigration misses the other pathway, temporary immigration. Temporary residents are people who come to Canada for a limited time, like international students, temporary workers, and so on. They come to work a job or go to school. When the job is done or when they finish their degree, most return home. Some apply to stay as permanent residents, but most return home. So, back to this year's plan. Historically, Canada's annual immigration plan just looked at permanent residents. The number of temporary students and workers that we admitted each year was left to the demands of the economy. It was usually a small proportion of our population, so it's never been a part of the long-term immigration plan. But after the pandemic, our economy came roaring back quickly, and we needed a lot of workers fast.
Canada is in the middle of a huge labor shortage.
Temporary foreign workers became such a significant part of our workforce that it'd be a mistake not to include them when we plan our immigration levels. So this year, we did exactly that for the first time. We laid out a plan that sets targets for both permanent and temporary residents. This way, we're getting the full breakdown of people coming into our country so we can prepare the homes and infrastructure needed to support them. Like I said, immigration is based on demand. When we set our targets, we look at every province and territory. We ask the premiers, what are the gaps in your workforce? Is your population growing or getting older? We field calls from businesses, CEOs, economic experts, all sharing their thoughts on where we should set our targets.
We've had a chronic shortage of labor for the last decade. It is the #1 issue of all manufacturers across Canada. So we think there needs to be more, push the pedal to the floor to bring more people into Canada.
Ontario is facing a generational labor shortage. 380,000 jobs are going unfilled.
It's no surprise that every sector has different wants and needs when it comes to immigration. But after the pandemic, they all came to us with the same message. After 2 years with closed borders, we need more people, more workers, fast. So we brought in more workers. And it was the right choice. It worked. Our economy grew. Restaurants and stores reopened, businesses kept running. But most importantly, in spite of lots of economists' predictions, we avoided the worst-case scenario, a recession. But some saw that as an opportunity to profit, to game the system. We've seen way too many large corporations doing this.
The government says the program has been used to get around hiring Canadian workers in some instances.
Far too many colleges and universities used international students to raise their bottom line.
There are the diploma equivalent of puppy mills that are just churning out diplomas. There is fraud and abuse, and it needs to end.
Because they could charge these students tens of thousands of dollars more for the same degree. And then there are really bad actors who outright exploit people, who target vulnerable immigrants with promises of jobs, diplomas, and easy pathways to citizenship, promises that would never come true. Looking back, when the post-pandemic boom cooled and businesses no longer needed the additional labor help, as a federal team, we could have acted quicker and turned off the taps faster.
Now, it is time to make the adjustments to stabilize the immigration system that we need and get it working right for Canadians for right now.
Immigration is primarily a federal job. We have the levers to rein it in, so we are.
This is a big change, a major cut to immigration, reducing permanent immigration levels by at least 20%.
New string of measures to clamp down on temporary immigrants. That means a decrease in international students, temporary foreign workers.
Canada's new immigration plan is straightforward. Lower the number of new immigrants coming into Canada, both temporary and permanent. We're prioritizing permanent residents with the skills we need, like healthcare workers for our hospitals and construction workers who will build more homes. And those temporary residents who are already in Canada, some will apply to stay in Canada as permanent residents. Since they're already here, established and working, the added pressure put on communities is very low. Or they'll leave Canada when their temporary residency expires, reducing our population. Some temporary residents may turn to our asylum system when their visa expires as a shortcut to stay in Canada. Those claims will be analyzed and processed, and if their claim fails, they'll be sent home. Between the amount of people coming and going, we'll effectively pause population growth for the next 2 years. Then from 2027 onwards, it'll balance out and slowly start increasing again at a sustainable pace. In fact, that gets us back to the population growth path we were on before the pandemic. This pause is going to give our economy and our communities the chance to catch up with things like our plan to build millions more homes. That's not stopping, but now we'll have a little more breathing room as we build. We'll see more corporations investing in Canadian workers and youth rather than relying on cheap foreign labor. Our cap on international students is already bringing rental prices down in big cities, and as we keep that cap in place, rents will keep coming down. We're making the system work for Canadians and for newcomers, rather than for the big box stores, chain restaurants, immigration consultants, and sham colleges that exploit it. Immigration is a great thing, and we're lucky that so many people dream of coming to our country. Fulfilling that dream depends on having a good job, a decent place to live, and health care that you can access when you need it. We have to make sure our population isn't getting out ahead of those things.
So as you can see, Angus, I think he laid that out very well, and I think that it was important to play that whole clip because I think that a lot of people need to understand what the decisions were, but more importantly, why the decisions came as such a shock and why the numbers were so drastic that now we are looking at here in Canada. And he did address some of the illegal immigration consultants that are making a lot of promises that people are finding are actually not in fact the case when they arrive in Canada. Plus they're being charged thousands and thousands of dollars for these services and applications that they aren't supposed to be paying for. They should be getting these applications done for, nominal assistance or whatnot when it comes to the fees, but instead they're charged thousands. So that's going to cut down on some of that business as well when it comes to Canadian immigration.
Yeah, I find this absolutely fascinating. Immigration, I think, is the issue of our time. It's massive here in Europe as well. Illegal immigration and immigration of all forms. And of course, we often report here in the UK of massive immigration and illegal immigration problem. It's caused huge ructions in society. We've had riots in our streets based primarily around this issue. Where people have said, look, immigration is just too much. Now, on the whole, immigration, when it's controlled and it's planned, is a very good thing. Essentially, you're bringing people into your society who will contribute massively to that society and help it grow and develop, etc., etc. So the whole concept is a very noble concept. The problem is when it gets overdone and the system gets abused. And this is clearly what's happened in Canada, it's happened across Europe, and it's happened here in the UK. And it's fascinating, actually. I think this video, to start with, I was wondering, is this a fake video, James? We often talk about AI and fake videos. And I thought, my God, this is an absolute sign of the times. And this really is an absolute sign of just what is happening, why this issue has become so controversial. Is that even a Liberal Prime Minister is having to admit publicly, saying, look, and this is somebody who is very pro-immigration, has actually had to say, hang on a second, look, this system is now being abused. We have to stop this. We have to stop the abuse. We've got to reduce the numbers, because basically he's realised the common sense approach towards immigration, which so many people have talked about, and you cannot have that conversation yet. Even here in the UK, you cannot have a common sense discussion about immigration because you get shouted down by the far left. They want to open the borders and let millions and literally millions of illegal immigrants swarm into our nations. And we've now, and it's interesting because now we've got Justin Trudeau now having to admit, look, we've got to close the borders, we've got to control it because it's damaging society. The infrastructure isn't able to cope with this. We've reached saturation point. Well, people here in Europe and the UK have tried to say this, but they are shut down immediately by the mainstream media. They're branded as racist. The left wing are trotted out and they call out this racist argument. You cannot have an intelligent conversation like this because the far left immediately stand up and say you're all racists, despite the absolute facts that say this is nothing to do with racism. It is simply the fact that this system, which conceptually is a good system, is being abused, it is being overused, and that societies across many countries cannot cope. Sweden had this problem. Now, Sweden is now having a problem of massive crimes, really serious crimes. I'm talking murder, rape, sexual assault, and a lot of it caused by illegal immigrants and immigrants from nations that are bringing in very different philosophical views on life, who are treating women in a very different way to which normal society in the West treats women as equals, etc. And they're bringing in a lot of quite serious crime. And more people are waking up to this fact, saying, look, we cannot allow this to happen. And the argument here, certainly in Europe and the West, is saying that there are two types of immigrants. There are those who are fleeing war zones. That is a very valid reason to seek asylum. And there are those who are economic migrants. And there are two very different types of immigrants there. And for economic migrants, you've got to say, look, there has to be a line. And many countries adopt a point system, which is very basic, saying if we need you, then you're allowed in. If we don't need you, then I'm sorry, but our doors are closed. It's a very basic, fair system. Many countries adopt that. The UK has tried to bring that in, much to the left wing's hatred, and they're trying to tear that system down. But countries across Europe now are realising that uncontrolled immigration is destroying and undermining society and culture, national identities, etc. So even many traditionally pro-immigration countries, Germany, a prime example of this, are now having to stand up and say, look, I'm sorry, but we have to close our borders. This system is failing. Now, back to Canada, James. I think likewise, it is absolutely a sign of the times. It is proving the fact that actually the sensible voices who stood up in the early days and said, look, you cannot have uncontrolled immigration. It is so destructive and dangerous. It has so many negative effects on society that even Justin Trudeau is having to stand up and say, look, no, we've got to control this because this system is being abused. Yeah. Interesting, India is mentioned specifically in his video. Yes, we do know that India has taken advantage of this system, and they have poured in not just economic migrants who necessarily shouldn't be there in Canada, but they've abused the system to allow Hindutva agents to come in under all sorts of fake guises, whether it's student visas or whatever, and they have been allowed to enter Canada, and they are fomenting their trouble. They are fomenting their disruption. They are agents of the RSS, and they are deliberately driving wedges amongst the diaspora communities. And by that I include Christians and indeed Muslims amongst the diaspora communities. So James, yeah, I think this is a fascinating video. I'm actually astonished, but I'm very delighted to see Justin Trudeau stand up. And I've always been a critic of Justin Trudeau, never been a fan of his. But actually, ironically, I am now becoming more and more a supporter of Trudeau, because he actually has not only stood up for the Sikh community, he actually has now, ironically, almost come, I wouldn't even say to the right wing, he's come to the sensible centre ground, where he has realised that, yeah, we need to draw a line under this immigration. We've got to keep a control of things. Unchecked illegal immigration is absolute fodder. It is ammunition for the extreme right wing. Those are the enemies. I always talk about the extremes. They are our enemies, the extreme left and the extreme right. And actually, as I often say, they actually meet in the middle. It is basically fascism, whether it's from the extreme left or far right or extreme right. They meet in that middle. That middle extremism is fascism. And it's the rest of us who are normal, civilised, decent people, whether left of centre or right of centre. We are the mainstream. We are the normal, decent people of society, whichever country you're in. It is up to us to push these extremes away from normal society, and I'm delighted to see that even Justin Trudeau from the centre left ground has moved into the decent area and said, absolutely, we've got to have a common sense approach. This is nothing to do with racism. Take note, UK. Take note, Europe. Left wing. This is all about common sense politics. It's not about racism. It's all about common sense, James.
That's absolutely right, Angus.
Indeed. Okay. Right, let's, on that note, I'm going to move on to my first story, and my second story is more relevant to this, but I want to talk about my first story first, and then we'll circle back to this discussion about immigration, etc., because it's very, very relevant at the moment. Now, I just want to just quickly cover a subject that we talked about last week. And in fact, we talked about in past stories, this is the banning of the Kirpan. Yes, this important religious symbol that is so important to the Sikh community, the wearing of the Kirpan, the sword, this traditional sword that dates back to the very start of the Sikh religion. Now, we mentioned in the past several stories, particularly in North America, where Sikhs were actually arrested by security guards. I think it was in one of the airports at JFK. A security guard, a taxi driver, was arrested. It was a taxi driver was arrested by the security border force for carrying a Kirpan, allegedly as an offensive weapon. Fortunately, it went to more sensible heads who said, no, guys, let's just drop this case. And it has become more mainstream now across certainly Western nations that it is perfectly okay for Amrit Dari Sikhs to wear their Kirpans in public. Is clearly not an offensive weapon. It is part of a religious attire. So out comes a story from India that we touched upon last week. We're a little bit late to this story actually, but our Punjabi side of our channel did cover this apparently a few days ago. But you can take your newspaper or news outlet of choice, but most actually news outlets have covered this story. I picked today the New Indian Express as just one of many examples who did pick up on this story, but I'll use this as sort of the backbone to cover it. Now, a recent, and they talk about this recent directive that came from the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security, the BCAS, under the Union Ministry of Civil Aviation. It, unsurprisingly, has ignited controversy by imposing restrictions on Sikh employees wearing Kirpans while on duty at airports across India. The order, which cites security concerns, allows Sikh passengers to carry Kirpans with blades under 6 inches on domestic flights, but explicitly prohibits staff from wearing them. What a strange distinction. So passengers can wear them, but staff can't. And again, you've got to look at this from many angles and say, well, look, if it's a dangerous offensive weapon, you're letting members of the public, these are people who have been who haven't been cleared other than a basic security pat down attending the airport. But that's the only security scan essentially that they've been subjected to, and yet staff who are subjected to a whole raft of normal security protocols. They've been vetted through extreme layers of vetting because, of course, they're working in an airport. You're saying that even staff can't wear Kirpans, and the whole thing absolutely stinks. So the Amritsar Vikas Manch, the AVM, and the Fly Amritsar Initiative, the FAI, have called on the Union's Civil Aviation Minister, Ramahan Naidu, the National Commission for Minorities, NCM, Chairperson Iqbal Singh Lalpura, and the SGPC, President Harjinder Singh Dhami, to intervene and resolve the matter. Unsurprisingly, that these bodies have said, look, please, to all the Sikh organisations, you've got to approach the Civil Aviation Ministry and say, look, this is ridiculous. You cannot allow this to go through. So it refers back to this original BCAS order. It was dated at the end of last month, a copy of which is in possession of the newspaper, and it's now widely circulating. It says, Kirpans carried by Sikh passengers, not permitted for staff of any entity, on domestic routes of fully domestic flights operating from domestic terminals are allowed. However, the blade should not exceed 6 inches. The total length should not exceed 9 inches. So in a letter to the Minister Ramahan Naidu, AVM and FAI wrote, we write to bring to your urgent attention the difficulties Sikh passengers and employees are encountering at Indian airports, including Amritsar, Chandigarh and Delhi, concerning the wearing of Sikh religious symbols. Our organisations have received numerous reports of Sikh passengers being compelled to remove even minor religious symbols, such as small Kirpans worn around the neck at the security check-in when boarding. Furthermore, a recent directive issued by the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security places additional restrictions on Sikh employees, prohibiting them from carrying Kirpans while on duty. Interesting note here that even despite the fact that the ministry has allowed passengers to wear Kirpans, that even the passengers, Sikh passengers, are still being subjected to being asked to remove even the small symbolic Kirpans that they might wear around their neck, little tiny ones, they're less than an inch long. The letter highlighted specific incidents, stating at Amritsar Airport, Amritdhari Sikh employees are reportedly being barred from entering the terminal with their Kirpans, hindering their ability to fulfil their professional responsibilities and, unsurprisingly, causing emotional distress. We respectfully request that this clause be revised to grant Sikh employees the right to wear their Kirpans whilst on duty, without discrimination. And importantly, they report that this restriction is particularly troubling when viewed in contrast to policies in countries such as the UK, Canada, etc., where Sikh employees are, of course, permitted to wear their Kirpans. And, of course, we have reported on this regularly here on the channel. It's also troubling that a similar restriction was briefly imposed in India 2 years ago, only to be rescinded following media attention and advocacy by Sikh leaders. Unfortunately, the restrictive language has reappeared, once again disregarding the religious rights of Sikh employees. Additionally, we've received numerous reports from passengers travelling internationally that CISF personnel at airports are compelling them to remove even small 1-inch length harmless Kirpans worn around the neck. So, yeah, it's as I said, it's pretty shocking that, first of all, it's weirdly, and I think this highlights really the hidden agenda here, passengers can carry it, can carry a large 6-inch blade, but staff can't. So again, it makes nonsense of this whole argument about security. I mean, it can't be security if you're allowing passengers to carry it. So clearly it is discriminatory against the staff on the one hand. Secondly, the fact that actually this policy is being rolled out so that even Amritdhari Sikhs who are wearing these tiny, these 1-inch blades around their necks, even those were completely harmless. They're not offensive weapons by any stretch of the imagination. But even those are being removed. The Sikhs have been compelled to remove them. And also, I think it's very interesting that they tried this 2 years ago, and there was a huge outcry from the community and across the media, so they pulled back on it. It's back again. Yes, they're trying it again. In other words, it's this mission creep. They're just going to keep pushing the BJP government, the anti-Sikh oppression agenda that's going on. They're just going to keep pushing until the lives of Sikhs in India and across the Punjab are just going to become so intolerable. This is what they're trying to do. They're trying to make the lives intolerable for Sikhs across the Punjab and across India. Now, the SGPC have responded to this, unsurprisingly. They have written a letter to the Indian Civil Aviation Minister. Thank you to one of our correspondents, Parmjit Singh, for highlighting this, but we did actually see it as well. The letter was written by the SGPC President Advocate Harjinder Singh Dhami. He said that it has taken strict notice of prohibiting Amritdhari-initiated Sikh employees from wearing the Kakar Kirpan at Indian airports. Harjinder Singh Dhami said that, as per the recent order issued by the Union Ministry of Civil Aviation's Bureau of Civil Aviation Safety, BCAS, the prohibition on wearing Kirpans for Sikh employees performing duty at airports is an excess and in violation of the Article 25 of the Constitution of India. Of course, the Constitution of India is, by its very foundations, it is supposed to be secular. It is supposed to allow the complete equality of all religions to operate freely without fear, without redress across India forevermore. That is ingrained into the Indian constitution. So therefore, and it is actually ingrained in the constitution, that the wearing of religious symbols, including the Kirpan, is allowed in India. So, as the SGPC point out quite clearly, it is in violation of the Indian constitution. It is basic discrimination. That word discrimination appears regularly in the constitution. I know because I'm one of the few people who's actually read the Indian constitution. It is basic discrimination. The SGPC president said that a letter in this matter has been written to the Civil Aviation Minister expressing strong objection to this directive, and an appeal has been made to immediately withdraw and revise the BCAS order. He said that this discrimination within his own country is a major attack on the religious freedom of Sikh citizens. The Indian government should never forget that the Sikhs made a huge sacrifice for the freedom of this country. He said that it is unfortunate that excesses are being forced on Sikhs who have sacrificed for the country in their own nation. He said that the governments should refrain from such actions that hurt the religious sentiments of the Sikhs. So, James, I think basically it's very clear what's going on here. As I said, This is plain and simple oppression of the Sikh community. It is designed to oppress and make lives intolerable for the Sikh community in India. Clearly, the Indian government, the BJP government, this Hindu-dominated nation who are pushing for this Hindu Rashtra don't like the Sikh community. They don't want them in their Hindu Rashtra. They are therefore trying to make lives as hard as possible, and they're trying to destroy the basic foundations of Sikhi, that these religious symbols. They're just trying to drive it out of Indian society, little bit by little bit, drip by drip. This is nothing to do with security, as clearly we've made clear. It's nothing to do with security, this. We've proved it's nothing to do with security. It's this drip effect of trying to drive out any symbolism, any overt visibility of Sikhi in the public domain. They're just trying to drive the Sikh culture and heritage out of Indian society. That's what it's all about, James.
Absolutely, Angus. It's almost like a dismissal by exclusion, where they are open to the rights of some people. And again, as you touched on, the Hindu majority that rules the country, and what they want people to see as the perception when they land in a country or when they're traveling. So again, I just think it's, as I said, it's dismissal by exclusion. They want to get rid of those people, and also to protect jobs for the other populations, friends, family, and the Hindu population as a majority, because those jobs are seen as more secure and more guaranteed with a better income than most in India, Angus.
Yeah, and I often see arguments across social media in the comments sections about people who support, from the Sikh community, who support the Indian government. And they say, look at all the Sikhs in these high places of governance, or in the police, or in the army, etc. Well, the answer is very simple, is that they have been granted these positions, not on their terms, but on the Indian government terms. They are living in a society and a regime that is only giving them a certain amount of power or capability on Indian terms, on Indian Hindu terms. They're almost like here's a token job for you people. But they have absolutely no voice, no real powerful voice in Indian politics or Indian governance. It's tokenism. That's all it is. This is why Khalistan, the argument for Khalistan is so powerful, is because at the moment, even the Sikh community, even those who have high profile jobs, whether it's in government or whether it's in the police force or whatever, it is not on your terms. It is basic tokenism. They're just tokens given to people in the Sikh community so they don't cause trouble. But always it's under the terms of this, essentially this Brahmanical control. And that's how they keep the lid on things. That's how they maintain control. And that's why Khalistan is so significantly important for the Sikh community, because the whole governance will be on Sikh terms, on the Sikh community's terms. And those who don't support or even understand the whole concept of Khalistan, you've got to understand that living in India under Brahmanical control, it means that you will forever essentially be enslaved under Brahmanical control. You will never really guide or have any influence on the agenda in India. India will always be run for the benefit of the Brahmins. Even for the Hindus, the lower caste have no voice, have no control. The whole of India is run by the Brahmins for the benefit of the Brahmins. The only way you will ever break away from this and stop that and have any real influence in the governance and running of your own country is through independence. So that can only happen through the establishment of Khalistan, through your own sovereignty. It's basic logic, it's basic common sense. That is why there is so much support for the Khalistan movement. That is why it will happen, plain and simple. So, James, let me move on to my second story. I'm going to turn full circle now back to what we've just been talking about. And James, you covered that story of that fake video, and that fake video has done the rounds across social media. When you look at it, and I've looked at it again myself in more detail, it's astoundingly fake. It is astoundingly obviously fake. But to you and me, James, we look at this and I think we can call it out very easily as fake. Sadly, though, many people out there just take it at face value. They don't know the nuances of Indian politics. We at least have got a flavour of it. We don't fully understand it because it's very complex. We're not in the Sikh community ourselves, but at least we've had a flavour. And we can start to pick apart the obvious logical failures of this video. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there, particularly in the Western world, who have no understanding or knowledge of Indian politics or the nuances or the complexities of it. They just take it at fake value. I'm now going to play you a video. And I have to lay credit to one of our regular correspondents, Suki Baines, who emailed us to highlight this on YouTube. And there is a podcast that's a reasonably well-watched podcast. It's not huge, but it's I think they've got about 10,000, 8,000 to 10,000 subscribers. But it's a Canadian podcaster who's picked up on this story. He's found this video on social media. And this guy, he's not, I don't think he's not right-wing, he's not far right-wing. He's just, I think if I had to label his politics, he probably sits right of centre. But he seems, from at least first on the face of it, he picks up general news stories and talks about it in a very eloquent and very passionate way. There's a certain appeal to this guy. But what he's done, he's picked up this video, James, that we talked about last week, that you analysed and clearly is a fake video. He's picked it up and he's had this to say about it. Watch this. This is quite scary.
This is our country. We are owner of Canada. We are proud Canadian. Like, share, everybody. Like, share.
Well, this is wild. Well, this just happened and took place in terms of an event that we see here in Surrey, BC. We just played this. You heard that correct. You are invaders. You don't belong here. Go back to Europe. Go back to Israel. We are the real Canadians. You go back. These are the words that were uttered at an event, a Khalistan event in BC. How are we supposed to take that? How are we supposed to feel about that? I don't know. I would say a little offended. What are we supposed to do with this?
Right. Now, I don't blame this guy at all. He's just taken that at face value. He doesn't know anything about Indian politics, but he's seen that video. If I was in his shoes and I didn't know anything about the Khalistan issue and what was going on with Hindutva, I'd have the same reaction, saying, "Well, guys, hang on, you're living in Canada. You don't drive us out of our country." Of course, that's not even right wing to say that. It's just a perfectly normal human reaction. But that is the impact of this video. For every one of him, there are hundreds of thousands of ordinary, decent Canadian citizens who will watch that video and have that same reaction. That is the dangerous power of misinformation, of fake videos. Now, I mean, again, I watched that video. Like, subscribe in this dreadful Indian accent. I mean, again, I just watched it and just laughed and shook my head. How clearly fake that is. And yet, this ordinary, decent Canadian citizen, whoever he is, whatever his name is, on this Elevate podcast, he's had a very predictable, understandable reaction to it. That's what's so dangerous about misinformation like this. And he talked at great length. He talked, for 5 or 6 minutes, just saying, look, we just can't have this. We've got to react. And that's what it's all about. We've got to react to this. We've got to push back against it. And this is what feeds the right-wing extremism, because it pushes people, ordinary people in the centre, it pushes them to the right. Hindutva know exactly what they're doing. This is why they're filling social media with rubbish like this. This is why they're pushing this fake narrative and these fake videos, this misinformation, because it influences ordinary, decent people into their agenda. Now, I'm going to talk about a lot of comments that follow this video, and this is what became really scary. Now, his channel, as I say, doesn't have a huge following. I think it's only about 5,000 or 10,000 subscribers. His normal video views, normally anything between 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, sometimes 5,000 views per video. Now, as of yesterday, this video had over 110,000 views. It was going viral. And the comments, normal comments, the number of comments after his videos, maybe 50 to 100 comments on a good day. As of when I looked at this yesterday, 3,631 comments. Again, it was going massive. And I'm going to read you some of these comments, and these make very, very scary reading. And I'll read you, these are the top comments that had literally thousands of upticks. Shiva commented, as an Indian living in India, I've never seen a Khalistani flag in real life, but only in pictures in Canada. Yeah, well, the answer to that is very simple. Why don't you see Khalistan flags in India? Because you go to prison. You get arrested for secessionism. It's not allowed. This is highlighting the very fact, Shiva M6113, that you don't live in a democracy. You can fly a Khalistan flag in any other democracy, but you can't do it in India because you get locked up, you get sent to prison. That's the problem with India, mate. That's what it's all about. The next comment, India warned us, but we didn't listen. Again, this is a very, very dangerous comment. We're saying that India warned people in Canada, and this is the Hindutva propaganda, the Hindutva warnings to ordinary Canadian citizens. Look at this danger living amongst you, these Khalistani extremists. And now look at the comments coming. Well, they warned us, but we didn't listen, so they must be right. These Khalistanis must be extremists. Look again how this propaganda is working on people like this. The next comment. Trudeau said the Canadian citizens, even to those who were mentioned as terrorists by the Indian government. So again, this is turning people against Trudeau. Trudeau, who has actually recognised the truth of the situation, that the Khalistan movement is not made up of extremists or terrorists, as Hindutva try to persuade the world through all this misinformation that the normal peaceful people, it is a peaceful democratic movement. Again, people are now turning on Trudeau, saying, well, look, they must be extremists because look at this video. Again, power of misinformation. And Gary Henneberry says, and they can't understand why they get kicked out of India. Again, I don't even need him to comment to respond to that one. Anups whatever says, Indians saw this coming from a mile away and even raised concerns. But we all got labelled as interference in Canada. Again, look at this twisting of the truth, this absolute twisting of the reality of what's going on here, is that this peaceful democratic movement has been labelled as terrorist by India through India misinformation and this fake narrative. And then he refers to interference in Canada. Yeah, mate, there is interference in Canada. It's Hindutva interference. And you, one of the sheep, one of the people who cannot think for yourselves, you're easily manipulated into believing this fake narrative. And this is the problem. This highlights that people like this are the sheep who are unable to think for themselves. They can't sift the fake information from reality, from the truth. They just take everything at face value. This is why Hindutva find it so easy to manipulate people, because quite often, and I'm sorry to say this, a lot of people are thick. They just believe everything that they're told, that they are spoon-fed by media, by fake media, by social media. They are unable to try and do their own research, to dig out the truth, find out what's really going on out there. And they turn around and say, yeah, it's we were told that they were a terrorist. Well, they must be, because I've just watched some rubbish video on social media. Next comment. As an Indian, I'd just like to say, in Justin's own words, we support freedom of speech in our own country, even if the speech is about destroying our country. Yeah, so again, taking the video at face value, and they're saying, as this fake video says, we want to destroy Canada, basically. Yeah, well, we gave you that freedom of speech, so they're now going to start turning on Trudeau, saying we've granted freedom of speech. Well, basically, so the message here is, look what's happening. We're giving you freedom of speech, now these people are turning on us. No, they're not. It's foreign interference. That's what they're trying to do. Again, Canadian by Saab. Thanks, Justin Trudeau, for allowing and supporting all sorts of extremism from around the world into Canada. Also, British Columbians who voted for the NDP must be really proud to see what's happening here. Bravo. Again, highlighting how this Hindutva influence, this Hindutva misinformation is now turning people against the Sikh voice, against Jagmeet Singh, against the NDP, and turning it against even Justin Trudeau, who is actually standing up for the Sikh community. These are the voices of the Sikh community. Look how Hindutva are turning people in Canada against people who represent the Sikh community. This is how they're operating. They are deliberately influencing people to turn against this powerful voice of the Sikh community. So that all this positive work that the Sikh community has done and achieved, they've got the Sikh community, they've got it a voice in public now. And now India are terrified of this, so they're now having to roll out these fake videos, this misinformation, to try and turn people against the Sikh voice. All Canadians, regardless of ethnicity, should boycott Punjabi Sikh events, businesses, gatherings. Harper was just a good Prime Minister. We had great lives during 2008-2015. So again, you can see it working. Somebody else says this was bound to happen. Canada would be studied as a case study for years to come. What happens if you let foreign elements go unchecked in your country? These people couldn't be loyal towards their own. What makes you think they'll be loyal towards others? Ouch! I mean, again, it's just painful to read how these people are so easily influenced by this misinformation. And again, this very mischievously uses this argument where we've been talking about immigration, James, where abusers of the system pour people into these nations like Canada and Western nations and Europe, etc., to cause mischief. But actually, the good immigrants, those immigrants who've come, who've contributed, who've absorbed and integrated into Canadian society, the Sikh community who've contributed so much to the Canadian society, and likewise the US, UK, etc., and Europe, who have integrated, who have built huge positive things and contributed to those societies, and they face comments, ignorant comments like this, from idiots, from sheep who are so easily influenced by rubbish propaganda, by misinformation like this. And here's a powerful point, and we talked about the referendum, James. Take note of this comment. Same in New Zealand. I just saw 1,000-strong Khalistani protest drive through my neighbourhood and not a single word in the media. Now, when I talk about when you go out to the referendum and all these events and keep enthusiastic, smiling, happy, positive, look at this comment. I've just seen 1,000-strong Khalistani protest drive through my neighbourhood. Now, you've been seen. Fantastic. But this person has combined this with this fake video. And they're now thinking, these Khalistanis, maybe they're all extremists. And maybe what I saw was actually a protest. Maybe they're protesting in New Zealand to say, let's kick white New Zealanders out of New Zealand. So look how they're trying to join the dots wrongly. And this is the danger again. This is why when you're out there, you've got to get the message across what you stand for, what it's all about. Because Hindutva are fighting massively. They are fighting tooth and nail to try and align the Khalistan movement with extremism, with violence. And that's what this person is joining the wrong dots together. So again, this is why we have to fight back, James, in this propaganda war. We've got to fight back against this misinformation because it's dangerous. It's so powerful. It has an effect on so many people, again, who I just think are complete sheep. And it angers me so much when I see people so easily influenced by rubbish misinformation like this to turn against ordinary, decent people in the Sikh community. Wow, James, the fight goes on. This war continues.
Well, that does, Angus, and I've seen this story picking up steam on the India media as well, of course, online. But really, I mean, let's take a quick peek at, or a quick point at some of the things. First of all, the audience doesn't turn when he starts shouting and yelling, and with that size of audience and somebody that loud, people are going to automatically turn and look. But there was nobody that was turning to look at him as he started yelling in that, more so than they were already looking in that direction. And the variations in the audio, and just so many reasons to say that that video is fake. But even if it wasn't, it was one person saying those things, not everybody there. It was the one person trying to get a reaction from an audience. And guess what? He found his audience online.
Yeah, and the fact that these stories spread so easily and they start getting really insidious and dangerous when they're picked up by people like this podcaster, because then he's then rebroadcasting to the Western audience, to the white people who don't know anything about the nuances and the complexities. That's when it starts getting dangerous, because their opinion then starts getting formed and cemented with fake news. So there we go. Okay, James, let's now that time's marching on, let's move on to our comments section. Right, we had a lot of comments after our last two videos. And Nav1047 made a long comment saying, and again, talking about the dangers of the BJP and the RSS. This person calls them dangerous and corrupt organisations. They're run and organised by the Indian government and Modi. Absolutely they are. There is a serious lack of awareness about how much the influence of the RSS and the BJP is influencing the Western agenda. I think, to some degree, I think you're absolutely right. And this is where we come in to try and highlight this fact. You say that you hold no affiliation towards the Khalistan movement. That's a shame. I don't agree with their views. It is not the teachings of our gurus. Well, that is absolutely your right to have that view, and we respect that view. But we will do our very best to persuade you about the rights and the positive argument for Khalistan. But anyway, that is up to us to persuade you. However, you will always get those who do not want to live peacefully and attempt to alter and dictate their own thoughts to others. That is absolutely right, and that is what these people are about. Sikhs have integrated very well wherever they go. They will continue to serve, as service is one of our main principles. There are many, many, many examples of this in our history. Please don't be influenced by Modi and the Indian government. I think, James, that sums up what we've just been saying.
Absolutely, very clearly, Angus.
Yeah, and you're totally right there. We've got to stop this dangerous influence that these evil people have on so many people across the West. Hat B says, talks about the character assassination. This goes on regularly. He talked about Deep Sidhu, Avtar Singh Kanda, Amritpal Singh, who were all murdered, or in the case of Amritpal Singh, was imprisoned. Not one piece of evidence of the crimes that they're accused of. Absolutely right. Deep Sidhu, Sidhu Musiwala, Avtar Singh Kanda are dead. Amritpal still remains locked up. He does indeed in jail. It's a shame on the Indian government, and you say absolutely rightly, no Sikh has ever got justice since 1947 from India. It's disgusting behaviour from people who call themselves a democracy. Yeah, as we say on an almost daily basis, democracy, ha! I think it's laughable, James.
Absolutely, and the more that Modi wants to push this narrative forward that they are the world's biggest democracy and that he wants to come and sit at, as you referenced, at the big boys table, it's going to have to change. And it's either he changes or he's going to be more siding with Russia, China, and the likes to that sort of dictatorship.
Now, James, as we push forward our own agenda, I think it's very likely, according to Achar Singh Gill, that we are going to be accused of being Khalistani extremists and terrorists. Well, if that is what we are, then I stand proud as an extremist, certainly not a terrorist. Well, unless I form as a terrorist, James, or we form as terrorists to the Brahmanical control of India. We will do everything in our power that is legal and democratic. Important points there. Legal and democratic, which is what the Khalistan movement stands for. We stand for legality, the rule of law. We stand for democracy. And you can call us extremists. No, that is not extremism. We are standing up for what is right, James.
Absolutely. And I have an ex-wife, so I've definitely been called worse.
Ditto, James. I can join you on that one. Right. And next set of comments. Eng Anwar Alawai or something like that says Hindutva is considered as religious apartheid worldwide. Yeah, it's not, unfortunately. I don't think enough people realise the evils of Hindutva. I think we all know in our own community, I think we know that Hindutva basically is a religious apartheid. I don't think enough people in the mainstream recognise it for what it is. I think it is up to us, James, to educate more and more people. It is to bring this message to more people, because sadly, That's right. I don't think people even know what Hindutva is. I think people outside of India, apart from the diaspora, are aware. I think probably many Indians themselves don't even realise what Hindutva is all about or what it stands for. And certainly, I think many in the Hindu community don't even realise how manipulated they are, or in fact how enslaved they are into this Brahmanical system of the caste system. So It is up to us to educate and get that message out. Now, Aman,
and more reason for people to share our channel with others so that they can get a bit more background, a bit more information, and hopefully, along with us, they can learn.
Yeah, spread the word. Aman says a very powerful quote from Benjamin Franklin: "If everyone is thinking alike, then no one is thinking." And a lie stands on one leg, the truth on two. And this is why, James, we always say the truth will prevail, for it stands on two legs, not one.
That's right. And I saw that comment and I really liked it. Thank you for that post.
And Achar Singhil also says, James and Angus, thank you for your compelling analysis. Thank you. Now, this is actually an important point. You say that you think that Mr. Panoon, as a firebrand in the statements he makes, that he actually would achieve more by making more dignified, sensible, non-dramatic statements. His statements give the needed ammunition to the Godi media to demonise Sikhs. The hate that the Godi media preaches creates a lot of trouble and danger for Indian Sikhs, especially those living outside the Punjab. Yeah, I think this is a very important point. I actually would slightly disagree with that. I know exactly the point you're making, and I do sometimes almost sort of agree with you, because I think he stands up and he really, I mean, it's very easy to sort of almost treat it as farcical, because he is so dramatic and his rhetoric is so powerfully loud, and it's almost laughable. But actually, as I said when I looked at his last video, I think it does serve a purpose, and I think it serves a very clever, powerful purpose. On face value, it is very easy to dismiss it. And on face value, you think it does feed the Godi media. It's very easy for the Godi media to say, look at this idiot and this ridiculous, almost clown-esque stance that he takes. But actually, I think there are enough voices out there that are giving what you call dignified, sensible, non-dramatic statements. I think that part of the Khalistan movement is well and truly covered. I think there are a lot of powerful voices making those statements. I think the Khalistan movement needs this multilateral voice. It needs to have the dignified, sensible, non-dramatic statements, but it also needs the powerful, dramatic statements from the likes of Panoon, because firstly, I think it does give a whole other element to the whole propaganda portfolio. I think more importantly, as I said when I reported on his last video, it does actually serve a very clever purpose. What he's doing, he's goading, he is provoking the Godi media, who then respond. And it's the response, it is because quite often they overreact, they over-respond. He's prodding it deliberately. He's setting traps for the Godi media to come out with outrageous statements. And then it is easy for us in the West to point to the fact, to the truth. For example, one simple example, kill Modi politics. He came out with this very almost outrageous statement, kill Modi politics. So of course the Godi media picked up as a threat against Modi. It's a threat of violence. No, it's not. It's kill Modi politics. 3 very simple words. So again, when the Godi media overreact, it's very easy to say, look at this ridiculous overreaction. Look how stupid the Indian media is when they're falsely accusing Panoon. Again, it's just a very simple but very clever device. He's provoking them. Again, almost acting as a clown. He's like one of those bull that you get when you see the bullfights in Spain. You get these people dressed as clowns who deliberately run around attracting the attention of the bull, and the bull immediately charges after them. Now, it looks comical, but in fact they serve a very powerful purpose. In fact, they're actually drawing the bull away from the real prize. That's what Panoon's doing. He's drawing the Indian media away from the real prize. He's making it look a fool. That's what he's doing, James.
Absolutely. And let's face it, at the end of the day, he gets attention. He gets the word out. He gets the Indian media talking about him as well. So people inside India who are not getting the mainstream news from the Western world and know what's going on, they then in turn are able to figure it out a bit more. And I think that helps. But there are times where even I've come out and said that I think that, sometimes it's a bit overwhelming for traditional Western residents, and that. So like even for myself, I look and go, okay, that might be a bit too far. Looking at it to try to gain that sympathy of the Canadian population or the US population, the UK population. So I think that there's a delicate balance, and I really hope that is his end, and then shows like ours where we bring that balance to it.
Yeah, and I think he knows his audience. I don't think he's trying to appeal to the mainstream Western audience.
Yeah, very
that's not who he's appealing
and
to.
articulated that way.
Yeah, and I think, as Achar Singh Gill says in your comment, when you talk about dignified, sensible, non-dramatic statements, it's those voices that are there to appeal to the Western mainstream audience. I think Panoon knows who his audience are, and his videos, I think, are designed specifically to target that particular audience, and I think he does that very, very well indeed. So,
that's right.
Anyway, let's move on from that. A lot of comments then followed about this fake video. D. Gill, Pretam Korman, Amrit Saravar, absolutely, yeah. You all point to the fact how obvious that video was fake. And then Kanwar Bir Singh says, James, you did a great job analysing the video. It's been edited with fake announcements, absolutely. I mean, again, I laugh when I keep saying, like, subscribe. I mean, again, it was so obvious. You're absolutely right. No one in the parade is looking at the speaker, etc., etc. There is this Hindutva mentality of creating fake videos because they don't have anything better to do. Sikhs strongly condemn Hindutva or Indian agents' fake propaganda. Now, I think where you're wrong, it's not Hindutva. I don't think they're creating because they've nothing better to do. It's it's stronger than that. They've got this is a very deliberate. They are pouring resources. They do nothing else but do this, not because they've got nothing better to do, because they are driven by whether it's money or the RSS agenda. There is a very specific, deliberate agenda to do this, and this is why it's so dangerous. Because it's not people who are just doing it because of, frankly, nothing better to do. It's driven by money and it's driven by political motivation. And that's what we've got to counter against. Right, final set of comments, James. Human says, ban Indian media and the RSS world media. Well, I wish we could. They're too clever for that. They know what they're doing. It's not just so much Indian media. We can't ban Indian media globally because they've got a global reach. The internet, it's like banning the internet. The RSS also, likewise, the RSS media is not something tangible. The RSS spread their message, infiltrated into media. They infiltrate the media. So they've got agents within the mainstream media, within academia, within government, within law enforcement. So it's like saying you can't ban law enforcement. You can't ban the government. It's these people have infiltrated. That's why they're so effective. They are infiltrating and they are influencing. They're very clever. That's what we're up against, James.
Absolutely, but I also think that it serves a purpose to keep the Indian media flowing, because we can pick it apart and really show the clear demonstrations about the falsehoods.
And MSVMSV says, look, please ban the RSS in Canada. Well, it's easier said than done. This radical organisation has been involved in all communal activities before independence, a very active role in the riots of 84 and 2002. That was when Modi, the butcher of Gujarat, caused that massacre in 2002. And they're now doing the same in the Western countries. They are indeed, and they're responsible for killing Mahatma Gandhi. Yeah, I mean, we should, frankly, ban the RSS. But again, it's easier said than done. How do you identify the RSS? How do you identify where they have infiltrated? How do you identify RSS agents? You can't. This is why it's so effective. It's almost like a secret society, and it's extremely difficult to pick them out and prize them out of Western society. That's the problem. All we can do is identify them and call them out for what they do and when they do it. And Jat Sumbal says, when I search, and this goes back to the point that I made the other day when I'm researching, when you search for CNN, for example, majority of the results are for CNN 18, which is the Indian Gaudiya media. Yeah, this is why they're so powerful. You do a search for anything related to India, it's always the Gaudiya media who dominate search results. Very hard to counteract that. Now, James, apparently we must be drunk according to NX8C.
Well, I'm not. How about you, Angus?
No, I am most definitely.
Are you celebrating early happy hour?
I can get myself in an awful lot of trouble, but I shall not. And I will say, no, we are most definitely not drunk. We can only say that we are metaphorically drunk on the whole concept of Khalistan, which is a very, very admirable, very seductive issue, because it stands for so many positive, wonderful things. And thank you for your comment. No, we're not drunk. We are very simply very passionate. It's probably very easy to confuse passion with being drunk. And but no, we do it for the love of what we do. We do it for the passion of the issue. We believe it. We believe in the issue very strongly. That's what it's all about. So, but thank you for your comment. Now, Ramandeep Kaur says, people who say they're not supporters of Khalistan, well, support it or not. Doesn't matter at this stage, because once Khalistan is established, you're all going to want to live in Khalistan. You mark my words. Well, Ramandeep, well said. I think you're absolutely right on this. I think even if people, and many of our commenters said they don't specifically support Khalistan, you don't have to. But once it is established, you will realise how good the whole concept is, how powerful the philosophy of Sikhi is when it is formed in governance, when it actually runs not just a local community, but actually runs on a whole country, as it did in the empire in the 19th century. It will become an attractive place to live. That's what happened in the 19th century. Many people flocked to the Sikh empire because of what it stood for and the society it formed. And as you rightly say, Ramandeep, I think people will come from all over the world, and certainly from India, across India. They will want to relocate to Khalistan because they will see the good that it brings to a society. James.
Couldn't have said it better, Angus.
And to wrap things up for the day, Sam Singh rightly says, we will see Khalistan in our lifetime. Well, I hope, Sam Singh, that we do. I do believe we will. The movement is in the right position to do so. The momentum is with us. The crowds are gathering. The weight of Khalistan is gathering. This is why India is fighting a desperate battle, why the propaganda war is stepping up, because they know they are losing. They are desperate. They are fighting tooth and nail because they know that more and more people are flocking to the banner. They do know that the legal process is in motion towards the United Nations. They do know that the Sikh community is uniting. It is aligning behind the Khalistan flag at last, that we are moving towards the sovereignty of a Khalistan nation. It is coming. And on that wonderful note, we shall bring Perspectives to a close for yet another day. But thanks so much for watching. Thank you for all your comments. Do keep them coming. We do appreciate them. We love your comments of support, but we particularly love your comments that are educational, that are interesting, that brings light to things that we and James and I may not know about, and educate us on our own learning journey about the philosophy of Sikhi and the community as a whole. So thank you for those. Do keep them coming. Thank you to our many correspondents who brought many things to our attention through our email. That is message@satlegetv.com. Do email us if there's things you'd like us to know about that we might have missed. And but on that note, we will bring things to a close. Thanks for watching once again. It is a goodbye from me, and it is a goodbye from James.
Stay safe, everyone.
Thanks so much for watching Perspectives. We will see you next time.